the ABC News Magazine. 2020 with Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters. Are your kids renting a movie this weekend? Horror films like these are the most popular choice. Graphic orgies of blood and violence.
And they watch 15 murders in an hour and a half.
Children mesmerized.
I like the gore.
But are they harmless?
It's always a female victim, and is generally in a sexual context.
With reports that life may now be imitating art, Bob Brown shows you what the kids are watching. VCR Horrors.
Horror movies, mutilation, decapitation, torture. Does that sound entertaining? More blood than a blood bank. Have we got your attention? Well, you may be sickened, but what about your kids? They seem to love every moment of today's horror films, movies that by comparison make Frankenstein seem cute and cuddly. If you find this disturbing, just wait, because there is a whole other dimension.
There is. Since VCRs, half of American households now have video cassette recorders. And for many children, they're a ticket to R-rated gore that the kids are too young to see at the movies. So, do you know what your children are watching? Well, parents and psychologists are very concerned. And tonight, Bob Brown will show us why. Fair warning, though, there is some graphic violence in this. But we say that for you, not your kids. They've probably already seen it.
First, you were frightened by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Then you were terrorized by Halloween. And now, prepare to be pulverized, traumatized, and hospitalized by... Splatter you.
I like the gore.
I love blood and guts and stuff, you know. I'm serious, it turns me on, you know, ever since I was a little kid. Because I love the feeling of being scared, you know.
Saturday afternoon matinees aren't what they used to be. To begin with, kids don't have to go to the movie theater. They can bring the movie home from the rental store. And some of the most popular kinds of tapes to watch don't resemble the old Hopalong Cassidy or Superman movies. The kids call them slasher or splatter movies. And they get together to watch them at gross-out parties. The movies are extremely violent, sexually provocative, and have graphic displays of mutilation. We asked 3 groups of kids why the movies appeal to them.
I see them with my friends, and we see who can keep their eyes open the longest.
Slumber Party Massacre. That was a classic. This guy just goes around killing people. That's the plot of all scary movies.
Kids get the movies from the horror section of the video store. Most of the violent movies are rated R and aren't supposed to be seen unless you're 17 years old. Others are made directly on videotape and bypass the rating system altogether. Video store owners say the movies are usually in their top 3 rental categories. Kids say it more simply.
On Monday morning, the biggest attraction is a kid that's seen one of these disgusting movies of the weekend. And, I mean, in incredible detail. And then this guy takes his drill, all right, and he goes and rams it right through the guy's eye. And everybody will go, and he's got a big crowd around him. And it's ridiculous, because, I mean, he's like the focal point of action for that day.
While the movies may be the rage with kids, it's a different story when their parents learn about what they believed were simply horror movies.
I considered myself an informed, concerned parent and mother, as we all do, and I had no idea that it was at the depth of this absolute mutilation.
Oh, my God. What's in that?
I didn't watch it.
What particularly shocks parents is the degree and repetition of gore and violence. In the movie these parents are watching, Make Them Die Slowly, 2 women are tortured for hours and then forced to watch as their male companion suffers another indescribable torturing process and is then beheaded. In this movie, Evil Dead 2, the male star is killed early in the film. But not only does he return as a spirit and appear to be killed several more times, one of the film's highlights occurs when he cuts off his own hand with a chainsaw.
Please don't hurt me. You swore.
The female star also appears to be killed several times. How did it get to this? What happened to old-fashioned horror, the sounds and mental images of Hitchcock and the other masters? Chaz Balin is a critic, author, and publisher who specializes in this genre. His books include such titles as The Gore Score and Horror Holocaust.
How are horror movies different now than they were when you were a kid?
I think we got a real impatient kind of contemporary audience now that's more raised on TV, that's more raised on MTV. The audience wants some noise. They want some thunder. They want the smoke machines. They want some loud rock music, and they want 15 murders in an hour and a half. They don't want to hinge a movie around 2 murders or 3 like in a Psycho kind of film. They want to have a body count.
That may be true today, but certainly Alfred Hitchcock's films were scary, and they didn't use graphic violence, even in the famous shower curtain scene from Psycho. 2 films seem to have provided the impetus for productions to become more and more explicit. The first was Night of the Living Dead in 1968, and the second was the 1974 release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Each was made for less than $200,000, and they reportedly have grossed more than $50 million apiece. The phenomenal financial success of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in particular led to a glut of Hollywood filmmakers, including several pornographers, moving into the horror field.
They'd taken that same formula, and instead of those explicit sex shots, they substitute women being killed and murdered by men.
And stories of members of organized crime wanting in on the action have also surfaced. In fact, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was distributed by a company headed by Louis Pereno. Not only was Pereno the producer and distributor of the porn hit Deep Throat, he is also considered by police to be an operative of the Joseph Colombo Mafia family. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its sequel, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, are still 2 of the biggest hits in the video rental market. It is the explosion of that video rental market that fuels the modern horror films. But even with all the violence, it's still only acting and special effects. So if kids like it, which they obviously do, what's wrong with making the violent films?
Often they're seeing slasher movies that the central plot is based on rapes and chases with women being pursued with buzzsaws and drills and being brutalized, raped, murdered, and parents don't realize that.
Dr. Dan Lintz is a psychology professor at UCLA and has co-authored a book on violence and behavior patterns.
The reason that we undertook these studies to begin with was because we feared that people were getting desensitized to the violence in these films, particularly violence against women.
And the results of his 4-year study show that people were affected by the movies, particularly in their attitudes toward women in real life.
When we put them in a situation where they had to make a judgment about a female victim in another context, let's say a rape victim or a victim of battering, we found that those people that were exposed to these teenage slasher films were less sensitive to that victim than were subjects who were exposed to other kinds of films or who were exposed to no films at all.
This is it. Here we go. Nice, nice, nice. Right there.
Linnea Quigley is currently one of the leading females in horror movies. She's posing here for the poster of her next film, Tantalizer. And her roles do seem to have a common thread.
I've been buried alive in mud. I've been victimized. I've been beat up. I've been impaled on antlers. I've been eaten by monsters. I've had zombies attack me. Just about everything that could happen has.
And even a few of the kids we talk to are concerned about women usually being portrayed as the victims.
Why does it always have to be women being killed? Why couldn't it be men? So that's the whole point. I hate it because I always kept that in mind of like, why always women?
But by far, most of the kids told us that parents and psychologists are overreacting. that it's just in the movies.
A lot of times the women are the victims because I guess women are supposed to be, you know, so fragile and so scared and everything, but it doesn't bother me, you know.
Sort of isolate movies as, you know, a major desensitizer of kids is probably giving it more impact than it deserves.
Andy Pfeiffer heads Empire Productions, one of the largest makers of horror films and risque videos.
In terms of our films, the violence is largely tongue-in-cheek.
Walter Jostin is the owner of Paragon Films, a new company that has had commercial and critical success with 2 horror movies, including Witchboard.
It's a changing world. I don't think we're showing anything in our films that is worse than anything they're going to see on the news or on the street.
The difference is, I think, that with the slasher film, what you have is this preponderance of violent images against women. In the news, the victims tend to be spread across many aspects of society within certain strata of society, males and females alike, black and white. In slasher films, it's always a female victim, and it's generally in a sexual context.
You have a son, right, who is still fairly young.
Yes, he's 5.
At what point would you want him to start watching some of these films?
He has seen all of our films to date. We don't feel he's seen anything that is jarring enough to scar him for life or anything, so to speak.
But the district attorney in Boston, Massachusetts, Newman Flanagan, thinks 5-year-olds are too young to see these films, and he has a reason. Last November, a 5-year-old boy, assisted by a 3-year-old friend, stabbed a 2-year-old girl 17 times with a knife.
They talked to their parents and the police officers after the incident, and they told them that they were talking about the Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger and the type of knife that was used. And here's a 5-year-old that when they brought out knives, he said, that's the type knife. That's the knife that we used. And
because of their ages, the boys could not be prosecuted. The 2-year-old girl is recovering. In tiny Beckville, Texas, the story had a different ending. Last May, at a graduation party for seniors from Beckville High, students were drinking beer and whiskey at a classmate's home. Some were watching a video called Faces of Death, which purports to show not fictional, but actual recordings of violent deaths. 2 of the students disappeared from the party. They were David Metcalf and Teresa Ann Downing. Metcalf later returned. But the next day, Teresa Ann Downing's body was discovered near this cemetery, not far from where the party was held, partially clothed, smothered, and beaten to death. Metcalf originally confessed to the murder and then recanted his confession. He has pleaded not guilty and is awaiting trial. Police believe drinking probably had more to do with the crime than the video. But interestingly, in his high school yearbook, Metcalf lists his favorite movie as Faces of Death. There are moves underway in several state legislatures to require that all videos display prominently a rating that describes their content. And many parents also want a better definition of R-rated.
We would like the Motion Picture Association to consider a further category of the R rating. We would call it RV, and that would classify a film as being rated R because of its sexually violent or its extremely violent content.
The bottom line is that even if new rating requirements are put into place, it's a voluntary system, and it isn't against the law for stores to continue to rent these violent videos to children. And it's also an issue on which a mother and her child continue to disagree.
Even if the films have special effects, and we all know that they're not real, in a child's perception or in an adult's perception, we're still dealing with repeated violent acts and the association of sex and violence that may make us more callous to those acts committed in real life.
You can't just say, okay, you can't see it and you can. Because, you know, some people, they're 25 and, you know, they can't mentally handle these killings. And, you know, some people when they're 3 years old can see a rated R movie and know that it's not real and just have it be there and be entertaining and scary at the same time, but not be completely inappropriate.
What a bright child.
Children are very wise. I guess in some ways that increases a parent's responsibility.
I can see why, yeah. A couple of questions, Bob. Can children rent these cassettes, any cassettes from these rental places?
Well, it's against the rules if it's rated R, but it's not against the law. So the answer is yes. And many of the video stores, in fact, are staffed by teenagers during the weekends or after hours. So it's very easy for children to walk in and rent a video.
The other thing is when you rent these, you know what you're renting maybe, but when it comes in the box, it's pretty plain. It just has the title. And how can a parent, or anyone renting for that matter, know exactly what the content is?
If the motion picture has been in theatrical release, it'll have its rating right on the box. If it was never released in theaters, it won't have a rating at all. So in that case, I would say a parent should look at the title, and if it has no rating, they might want to find out more about it before they let a child watch it.
Right. Thank you, Bob.
Top of the news this evening is speculation concerning the real facts behind the Department of Health announcement about a radioactive spill supposed to have occurred yesterday at the state nuclear plant. Information from an official source, which reached our newsroom this afternoon, stresses the seriousness of the situation.
Mr. Miller, something very serious has happened at the airport. But until we conclude our investigation and take the necessary countermeasures, nothing is going to leak out. Nothing.
This individual and others like him have been subjected to strong doses of atomic radiation, which increase their physical capacities beyond the norm. In short, it's a kind of a Superman. This is Channel 5 TV station. We're being attacked. For God's sakes, send somebody fast.
God help us all.
Here now the news for July 4th, 1995. In the wake of widespread economic collapse, officials are reporting massive general strikes.
In the 1970s, there was Clockwork Orange. Then in the 1980s came Mad Max and the Road Warrior. Now comes a startling new vision that takes you into the apocalypse and beyond. Back to the old drive-in you used to know and love. Only now, when the show is over, there is no way out. Dead-end drive-in.
Right now. Not getting through to you, am I, son? No cabs, no buses, no transport. So, you're here, you're here, you're here, you're here. The government decides what to do with you. Government. This is your home.
You can't tell me they don't want to get out now.
Yeah, but they know they can't, son. There's no future. No future.
Come with me.
Jimmy, can't you see? This is all we've got.
Get out of here. And don't you try and stop me again. Now get out of the way! Hey!
Welcome to your future, like it or not. Dead-end drive-in.
Hey, fellas, don't fight over that hot dog. There's plenty for everyone. Big, plump, and juicy, wrapped in an oven-fresh bun. Add mustard, relish, ketchup, and go to work. Yes, the hot dogs at our refreshment center are the best you'll find anywhere. Everybody agrees on that.
Answering our radio calls. Hey, Matt, the suspense is killing me. What do you think?
There's not a soul in sight. Really weird.
There's somebody in there, I'm sure of it.
come from outer space?
Why not? How many worlds are there in the universe? Millions. Perhaps billions.
Unless they come from much closer, but...
Mars has always stimulated man's imagination. But as far as that cave was concerned, there was absolutely nothing in there.
You were telling the truth all along.
But these are photographs. But there hasn't been another expedition to Mars.
No. These were found here, on Earth. Thousands of them.
The woman is Stella Holmes, a first-class mind.
Gentleman and lady would like information about our coffee.
All your questions will be answered here. It's too late. Hamilton has got your friends.
In a remote African jungle, a small monkey is captured. Bound for a pet store in America, the animal carries a deadly virus.
Now, I know that some of us have doubts about what we're about to do. We'd be less than human if we didn't. But the fate of the nation, perhaps the world, is in our hands. We cannot, we dare not refuse this burden. I'm confident that each of you will do his duty. God forgive us.
Your town is being quarantined.
We got 19 dead. We got 100 more infected. It's spreading like a brush fire.
What are you talking about?
If one of them's got it, then 10 of them have got it now. And if one of them gets out of Cedar Creek, we have a very interesting problem.
If that bug gets out of there, 260 million Americans will be dead or dying.
I'm leaving with the team in an hour.
From the heart of a small California town.
Damn it, Sam, I want to save these people, same as you.
To the inner circle of power in Washington.
The most optimistic projection for the spread of the virus is this: 24 hours, 36 hours, 48 hours.
The greatest medical crisis of all time.
We can't stop it.
Begins.
Try to remain calm.
Many people are dying and are going to continue to die unless we find this monkey.
There will be panic the likes of which we have never seen.
There you are!
Attention, Portland residents, citizens of San Diego, residents of Atlanta, Denver residents of Detroit, attention, Dallas residents of Chicago.
It was a groundbreaking ceremony for a new factory.
Did she mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane, the airport?
No, she said she was jet lagged.
The average person touches their face 3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, and each other.
Matt.
Mom?
No, go up to your room, honey. So we have a virus with no treatment protocol and no vaccine at this time.
You had a seizure this morning, Beth.
Does she have a history of seizures and allergies?
As of last night, there are 32 cases.
Unfortunately, she did die.
Right. Can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
What happened to her? What happened to her?
Is there any way someone could weaponize the bird flu? Is that what we're looking at?
Someone doesn't have to weaponize the bird flu. The birds are doing that.
Watch this. It's transmission, so we just need to know which direction.
On day one, there were 2 people, and then 4, and then 16. In 3 months, it's 1 billion. That's where we're headed.
They're calling out the National Guard. They're moving the president underground. People will panic.
Get away!
It will tip over.
The truth is being kept from the world.
Cook your samples, destroy everything.
Hello. I need you to get me the names of everyone who serviced this room. It's an emergency.
You can't panic now.
I know.
I'm gonna get you home.
I got people too, Dr. Cheever. We all do.
Don't talk to anyone. Don't touch anyone. Stay away from other people.
Get back in your car! We're not sick!
It's figuring us out faster than we're figuring it out.
It's mutated.
In the year 1990, the New York City authorities declared the wasteland known as the South Bronx to be a high-risk area. There would be no further attempt to restore law and order to that notorious borough. The South Bronx had long since been controlled by gangs with such names as the Riders, Scavengers, Ironmen, Tigers, and Sharks. To venture without permission into the territory of a rival power was to risk war. War with no holds barred. War to the death. Only one man had anything to gain from such a war. Only one man could prevent it. Only one man. 1990, the Bronx Warriors.
Sake of
Here's one for
good banter, if you want to call it that. When my son was teething, he used to like to take the big fat rubber end of my vibrating toothbrush and put it in his mouth and he'd just kind of sit there like, oh yeah, that feels good. That hits the spot. My gums are itchy. And he'd sit there with
What you are hearing is an actual radio broadcast. It is the only recording of the event.
Roadblock
roadblocks preventing people from leaving and entering the area.
Everybody is under quarantine.
We still do not have an official version of these events, and it's very difficult at this moment to get a fix on what has happened.
Oh God! These people are trying to eat their way inside.
They cut into our signal.
Ken?
And their eyes. He's looking at me.
For your safety, please avoid contact with family members and refrain from the following. All terms of endearment. For greater safety, do not translate this message. Not translate. Just listen to me.
Like a couple of hours. Yes, outside. I'm all outdoorsy now. Yeah, even have a walking stick. Yes, I know how to use it. Somebody help me! Totally made up. I'm going. I just want to get a little exercise. Yes, Mom. Yeah, I know what side the moss grows on. Mom, honestly, what's the worst thing that could happen?
I get it. She's saving water
my turn to get out while she's brushing her teeth?
Whoa.
Right, Derek?
Oh, boy. Hey, let's brush and rock, okay? Oh.
Oh, I'm brushing my teeth on top. It's so much fun, I hate to stop. But while I'm brushing my teeth and having so much fun, I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run. Oh, I'm brushing my teeth on the bottom, 'cause I wouldn't want to say that I forgot 'em. But while I'm brushing my teeth and having so much fun, I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run. Oh, I'm brushing my teeth in back. Gotta get rid of all the plaque. But while I'm brushing my teeth and having so much fun, I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run. I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run. Oh, I'm brushing my teeth all around, and I like to hear the swishing sound. But while I'm brushing my teeth and having so much fun, I never let the water run. No, I never let the water run. Right.
3D. The movie fantasy of yesterday is now the terrifying film experience of the future. For technical reasons, the preview you are about to see is not three-dimensional. Be assured, Parasite is the most gripping and frightening movie you will ever see. And in 3D, you will be part of the terror. You are about to witness the future. Be warned, it is a shocking sight. 3D, the ultimate sensation of visual art, now creates the newest, most terrifying form of fear, Parasite.
That thing on your stomach.
A new strain of parasite. When it reproduces, it will cast millions of microscopic spores into the air.
Just move your legs towards me real slow. Real slow.
Experience the living, breathing, terrifying vision of modern 3D. Parasite. You have only seen the preview. In 3D, you will live the film. Parasite. The first futuristic monster movie in 3D. Parasite.
If you think you're not afraid of the dark, if you think you have a strong stomach, if you feel nothing can shock you, if you say you don't scare easily, if you believe you've seen everything, then prepare yourself for a motion picture that takes you beyond fear, beyond your wildest nightmares, and brings you face to face with terror, beyond the power of priest or science to exorcise. What are they? Raging demons from another world? Bloodthirsty creatures that must be killed? Or incarnations of absolute evil? They possess men, women, and children, and drive them to acts of unbelievable horror. No one is safe from them. No power on earth can stop them. The only escape is death. If this picture doesn't make you scream and squirm, you'd better see a psychiatrist. Quick.
Come and take a peek at everything on the screen that makes you scream with the man who's created some of the scariest moments in horror history. Scream Greats Volume 1 presents Tom Savini, master of horror effects.
My old friend Jason has been sliced, diced. I mean, he's been killed
58 times. In Day of the Dead, I had 6 guys working for me. 3 months before we started shooting, we did elaborate zombie. We're making generic zombie appliances, small, medium, and large. In many ways, I still have not grown up, and that's luckily for me where the magic still exists and how I can put it into things, you know.
Shout It Out with Tom Savini, master of horror effects. And now, the thrills continue with Scream Greats Volume 2, Satanism and Witchcraft.
This is no dream. This is really happening.
Over the years, frightening films with devilish consequences have been the spine-tingling subjects of mystery and controversy. Now, Scream Greats Volume 2 takes a shocking look at such movies as The Omen, The Entity, and Rosemary's Baby.
Let me say this, that most of what you see up on the screen there actually does take place.
They use blood in their rituals, and the blood that has the most power is baby's blood.
When the movie came out, Rosemary's Baby, and the book came out, friends of mine who had heard my memories weren't sure that it was safe for me to see that, because it sounded so much like what I had survived and what some other satanic survivors had survived.
Scream Greats goes to extremes to keep you on the edge of your seat with Volume 1, Tom Savini, Master of Horror Effects, and Volume 2, Satanism and Witchcraft, from Paramount.
We never thought it would happen.
Nobody gets in or out of their town now, is that clear?
The girl just died. How do you intend to let the people know about all this?
We were asleep. They dragged us right out of the house.
Are we under martial law?
Don't talk to me or anybody else unless you got a voice print check. All hell's broke loose in town. Nobody knows what's going on.
Now look, you just can't push us around this way.
We've got to get a nuclear weapon in the air above that town.
I taken me no place. Oh, man, this isn't
They started something they can't stop. The crazy. Something that inflames. Something that brutalizes. It's madness unleashed by human error. The crazies. Can they tame it before time runs out?
I'm a key man on the 50s team. A key man. I'm one of the developers of the goddamn thing.
Now, if you want me to get the job done, you get me the stuff I need, and you get it the hell in there before the morning's over.
A small town becomes a giant stockade. Evans City must be contained or leveled.
We're all concerned with Evans City, Mr. Hawks.
If we have to push the button, we just say the weapon went off. Get me the president.
3,614 people are trapped by an unknown enemy. 5 are on the run. Can they escape the spreading fury of the crazies?
We can make it. I know it.
Stop it! Stop it! They're coming, David! David, they're coming.
Move. We gotta get out of here.
Jesus, man. And I want a weapon search for the entire town.
Watch it, Barky!
This is exactly the kind of thing we're trying to prevent.
A lethal terror snowballs into hell.
In there.
Madness runs rampant.
We'll dope it out. Sooner or later. Sooner or later.
The crazies.
Since the nuclear holocaust, 20 years have passed. But planet Earth has been reduced to a garbage-strewn radioactive desert, inhabited by humans devoid of all hope for a future.
In this sector, in exactly 30 seconds, the hunters and exterminators will begin total disinfestation.
If you go to New York and bring us back that woman, I'll guarantee you a seat for the jury. This is Bronx. His mind is a veritable map of New York City, and that's Ratchet.
Who's next?
The strongest man in the new Confederacy.
How do we get into Manhattan?
Getting in will be easy. It's getting out that's impossible.
It is futile to put yourself through all this pain. Tell us all about your mission for the Pan-American Confederacy.
You're a cyborg, Ratchet.
A great ride, friend, but I have a feeling it's about over. Look.
Another sensational blockbuster joins the spectacular new releases from VTC. Ready?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Angela Vidal. We're in Los Angeles, traveling along with the fire department. That's not so bad.
These are the men you'll be shadowing tonight. Wherever they go, you go too.
Police are here. It might be a little more serious than we thought.
A woman was screaming bloody murder back there.
Fire department's about to begin the rescue process. Police say that she lives alone. She's not very social.
Okay. We're gonna get you some medical help, okay? Yeah, buddy, come on.
Tape everything. You hear me? Tape everything.
Sit down. Hurry up, officer down. I need an ambulance immediately.
Do not try to leave the building. This will all be over shortly.
Why are they isolated? I don't know more than you do right now, okay?
We were told that tenants inside need medical aid. Chief.
Everyone's been evacuated. Everyone's completely safe.
Why would he say that?
I can't get through to my husband and my daughter has a fever.
We gotta get out of here.
We're filming this! People are gonna see what you're doing to us!
We go out!
They're not gonna let us out of here alive, are they?
No matter what happens, just keep moving.
My daughter has a fever.
I think I know what this is.
We need to talk to her. Whose apartment is this? Oh my God.
You have no idea how bad this thing is. The man who lives here.
Let me get out of here!
Go back!
And now, on with the show.